So, welcome to another episode of School of Noble Thoughts show. Today, we have as our guest a great gentleman, successful human being, successful banker, and an entrepreneur. He's a great friend and a personal source of inspiration to me for years now. And he's a proven leader with ability to businesses in new environments and realize business goals in new ventures. Over 26 years of experience with Citibank and in different countries and a member of Citibank's Quarter Century Club, developed entirely new business for Citibank in Thailand and former Czechoslovakia. And he has been uh, initiated Citibank as a membership in the newly set up Prague Stock Exchange. He has been as the first secretary of the Czech Forex Club, played a leading role in expanding membership and getting international affiliation to worldwide body, was recognized as one of the world's leading successful professionals and included in the 1999 edition of International Who is Who Professionals. Excellent ability to integrate in different environments and ensure sensitivity to local cultures. And he has been a specialist in banking and related financial services with focus on investment banking, training, operations, corporate banking, and corporate finance. And beyond his professional achievement, he's a successful father of three sons and four grandchildren now. And cricket and badminton has been his favorite sports, and he has had an active hobby of philanthropy in his life. And now he's in his retired age. He enjoys gardening and spending time with his dog, and lives in a quiet city of Prague in Czech Republic. So without any further delays, let's welcome one and only one, Mr. Vijay Khanna. Welcome to the School of Noble Thoughts show, sir. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you?
I'm good, sir. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you here. And tell us about something about yourself. From your eye view, give us a little bit of uh, a view of your life from your perspective in a nutshell, if you would.
Well, to start with, I was born at Rawalpindi, which was then part of undivided India,
Okay.
and then moved. We first moved to Delhi after partition, and
Okay.
then subsequently to Mumbai, which is where I had my schooling, my college education, and my master's degree from University of Bombay, Bajaj Institute of Management.
Okay.
I started my job in Mumbai with after my post-graduation, I started my job in Mumbai with Citibank. But before that, I worked for about a year with Johnson & Johnson after graduating and before joining Bajaj.
Okay.
So that was at the factory at Mulund in Mumbai. Yeah? So as we go along, I can discuss other things in terms of my moves after joining Citibank and different locations that I've worked at.
Fantastic. That's so good, sir. So great to know. Can you give us like little bit of information, like throw some knowledge on the basic information, like basic education, basic education you have already told us, you and family and schooling, maybe what family you were coming from, your parents, and how was it in growing up and during that time of your age?
Right. I had actually a difficult childhood. The reason being that my parents were not very well off.
Okay.
When we moved to Bombay, we were staying at the Koliwada refugee camp in Mumbai initially. But subsequently, in business, my father didn't do that well. I lost my mother when I was 18, which was soon after I was out of school.
Okay.
Yeah. And my father passed away also subsequently. Therefore, after graduation, I had to take up a job, save some money to study again at Bajaj.
Okay.
Hmm?
So basically, you started earning yourself to finance your education.
My
Yeah,
post-graduation.
post-graduation.
Right. That's correct.
So, and graduation, you were supported by your parents while doing
Yes,
graduation.
that's right. Until then, my father was alive also, and he supported me. Despite his difficult financial situation, he supported my education.
Like any father would do. Yeah. So, I mean, that was so good of him that while having his difficulties, he was still able to take care of children,
Right.
which is not usually people give up. And you see quite often now in the modern world, parents, they start giving up on their children because they are not able to cope up with the economic crisis on the watch. So that's something recommendable. Sir, what was the this was which place? You were in Bombay that time? Or were you living
Yes, I was in Mumbai. Yeah.
in Mumbai? Yeah,
Well, my entire childhood was in Mumbai, actually.
Mumbai.
I did my schooling in Mumbai, then Bombay, of course. Yeah.
And how old were you when you came from the partition, like when you were
Well, I was less than 3 years old,
3 years?
about 2.5 years old, actually, when we left.
You
It
left
was
India.
slightly before partition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very, very common story in many, like in my house also. My father was also, I think, more or less your age, or little younger than you. When we also came back from my grandfather also he migrated from Rawalpindi, Gujranwala. So
Right, I know.
he was a grain merchant there, and he was a successful grain merchant, one of the richest man there. And
Mhm.
he had to lose everything when he came to India, and basically
Right,
he
right.
lost everything in that. And that was a very crucial stage for most of the Indians and Pakistanis, I guess. That civil war which was there at that time, the migration process. Yeah. So that said, life takes its own pace. You grew up in Bombay, and you graduated from Bajaj College. You said Bajaj
Yes.
University.
Initially, St. Xavier's College, I did my BSc in mathematics and physics.
That's one
And
of
then,
I think that's one of the best colleges in
yes, it
Mumbai up
is.
to date. Yeah, St.
That's right.
Xavier's.
Right.
Yeah.
My schooling was in Don Bosco High School, which is a school in Matunga. We used to stay close by there.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
and then my post-graduation was Jamnalal Bajaj Institute of Management Studies.
So you studied management basically there.
That's right.
Management.
I graduated in management. It's not called MBA because we had our first director, Dr. Basu,
Yeah.
who said that nobody becomes a master of business administration when he passes out. He
Yeah.
called it Master of Management Studies. So my degree is MMS and not MBA.
Okay.
Master of
Master.
Management Studies. He said, all we can give you is studies. You can become a Master of Administration over time.
Right. Right.
That was his philosophy.
And that's still that is still continuing. The Master of Business Studies,
management studies is still
management
continuing.
studies.
Yeah,
So
MMS.
you still have it as a degree there. There's one of the
Absolutely.
still continuing. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so unique. Yeah. So something new which he initiated, I guess. And sir, what was the like you studied from there, and then from what happens after that? You got your job in Mumbai, first job or something? Citibank,
Yes,
you said?
I started as a management trainee in Mumbai with Citibank and then moved to Calcutta. I was there in Calcutta for about a little over 3 years.
3 years.
I even got married in 1971 while I was in Calcutta.
Young age.
Yeah, and I was 26 years old at that time. So in those days, 26 was a good age to get
Good
married.
age to marry. Yeah, very true.
Now, of course, people are getting married much later.
Yeah, things have changed now. Yeah, trends have changed, especially in India, where marriage is a huge ceremony for like
Mhm.
it's a huge thing. I mean, not as compared to the Western world where you might have different ideologies around marriage, but still in India it's a huge thing till now. It's once in a lifetime event when the whole families get together
Oh,
around it,
yes.
you know. And I can
That,
imagine at your time, at that time it must be a real. So you got married in Mumbai and
in Calcutta, actually,
in
while
Calcutta.
I'm in
Okay.
Calcutta.
Right.
Right. But you're right. Even now, I go to India to attend marriages where
Ah,
I meet
yes,
all
it
kinds
is.
of.
It is a ceremony. It's a huge Indian ceremony. Indian marriage is a unique institution by itself, you could say, which involves lots of
Absolutely.
efforts, lots of money, lots of energies, and the relatives around.
And the
So
good thing is you meet all your relatives, that some of them whom you may not have met for years.
met for years. That's true. That's the brighter side of it.
Right.
So what is then what happens? Like you have life experiences of your journey starts. You get into the banking sector, like as a trainee, you said in Citibank.
Yes, yes.
So
Yeah.
then,
I think one of the things that's interesting is why did I choose banking? Uh, See, while I was at Bajaj, one of the projects I did at that point of time, which was
yeah,
very well accepted by the university and graded very well also, was on will the nationalization of banking promote economic development?
yeah,
In 69, the 14 major banks had not yet been nationalized, but there were questions in those days.
right,
And during my project, I met various bankers too in different banks uh, and decided that that's the career that I wanted. It just happened because of this project. Otherwise, I had no other exposure to banking before that. Uh,
So I mean, you didn't have any inclination as a child into banking or something, like when you studied in school and like did you like? Well, you said
I
you
wanted
completed maths,
to
right?
become an
You said
engineer as a child. As a
sorry.
child, I wanted to become an engineer, and then I didn't do engineering. I changed my mind.
Oh,
I
you wanted to
got
become
interested
engineer.
in
Okay.
mathematics,
Hmm.
pure mathematics and physics.
Right.
So that's what I started working on. So the childhood dream of engineering no longer existed when I
Right.
was doing my post graduation. I changed my mind.
It happens very often, sir. It happens very often actually. I wanted to become a merchant navy, merchant navy. I wanted to join the merchant navy always. And I mean, I was selected for NDA, National Defense Academy, at one stage. All India. I was almost like 100 or 115 rank All India.
Right,
And
right,
but I came to know that it's not merchant navy; it's a defense. It's the whole thing.
right,
So I mean, that was something. My father was a defense officer, so like he wanted me to get
okay,
into his shoes always.
sure,
So, but life takes turns. Yeah, yes, sir. So it takes so turns. You never know what is there for you in life and where you
absolutely.
are. So you got into the banking sector, and after that project, you say, and then what happens? You got into a trainee into a Citibank. Tell us more about your entrepreneurial journey or the banking, in the financial industry. How did it start? Few further.
I worked in different environments, even with Citibank in India, which I think was very useful. I believe was very useful because it exposed me to
Hmm.
some differences between locations as
Right.
well as people and cultures. I, After Calcutta, I moved to Delhi. After Delhi, I moved to what was then Madras, now Chennai,
Now
and
Chennai.
then I moved back to Bombay. Uh, After which, I
So
moved to
all over the
Thailand.
country.
I moved to Thailand, moved back to Bombay, and then covered India, Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. After which, Central and Eastern Europe opened up in 1989, after the revolutions. And in 1990, I moved to Belgrade in what was then Yugoslavia. And we at Citibank had a license for a joint venture bank because Yugoslavia in those days did not permit branches of foreign banks. So we had a memorandum of understanding with Yugobanka for a joint venture bank.
But
we opened
sir, I'll just interrupt you. I think you were in Middle East also sometime before that?
Later.
That was later that. Okay.
That was later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this was a joint venture bank.
Now this is all happening within Citibank, yeah? This is all happening with Citibank?
This is all happening with Citibank. We got our license for a joint venture bank. We opened a rep office at the Intercontinental in Beograd. And we're all ready to open, but then everything's changed in December of 1990. Milosevic won the elections, as you may recall, in 1990. And Slovenia, which was then the richer part of Yugoslavia, was about to separate out.
Okay.
And we decided that we would be in the wrong country.
Okay.
So we closed our rep office.
Sorry, what is the lentil?
Just a second.
What is the lentils?
In the kitchen, on the table, just where the kettle is. I put the bottle there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
No
that
problem.
Was my wife.
That's your wife, yeah. So, greetings to her, yeah.
Yeah, she's gone back to the kitchen.
No problem.
Okay. Sorry, where was I now?
You were talking of Yugoslavia.
We decided to close our rep office.
Yeah.
In Belgrade, and I moved to Vienna, where we had a company called CityCorp East-West Services.
Okay.
Which handled our non-presence business in Central and Eastern Europe out of Vienna.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So I moved in December. Between Christmas and New Year, I didn't know what my next job would be. But fortunately, in January of 91, we got our Czechoslovak banking license. And I moved to Prague.
For Citibank.
For Citibank. A year, I was head of treasury and investment banking. At the end of after about almost 5 years here, which was my longest stint in any single location, I was at a Forex Club meeting, an international Forex Club meeting, where I was sitting next to the secretary of the German Forex Club. I was the secretary of the Czech Forex Club.
Right.
At the end of the meeting, we had a long chat while we were sitting together. We had dinner together also. I was sitting together because dinner was served in a similar kind of situation. And he asked me if I would like to join his bank in Munich. This was a bank that was then called Bayerische Vereinsbank. It later on merged with Hippo Bank and became Hippo Vereinsbank and is now part of UniCredit Bank.
Okay.
Yeah. I asked him about the offer. He said, "Why don't you come to Munich?"
Yeah.
So I made a trip to Munich from Prague.
Yeah.
Met various people there, the seniors and some of the directors too, and Conrad, who was also the treasurer there. The job they offered me was head of emerging markets. I looked at the job, and even before the compensation, I said, to myself that this probably is the right career move for me,
For me.
because I had covered Central and Eastern Europe, I
Right.
had covered Asia
Right.
and India, Far Eastern India, and Bayerische for them, emerging markets were basically Central and Eastern Europe and Asia. They were not
Right.
in Africa, they were not in Latin America, and they were
Got
not
it.
even in the Middle East.
Got
So
it.
it was a kind of perfect career progression for me.
Yeah.
And financially also, it was much better. But after all the German taxes, in those days, there was also an East German surcharge, etc. The net was not much better, but I took it more for the career,
Correct.
rather than for money.
For the change.
And a change. I'd only done Citibank over 26 years. I wanted to see what the world was like outside of Citi.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I was in Munich for just about a year,
Yeah.
and my ex-boss from Citibank, who was also German, had become the general manager of United Saudi Bank.
Okay.
United Saudi Bank was a bank owned by Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, who was also the largest single shareholder of Citi.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. Now, Karl Saboda had an aunt in Munich who was over 90 in those days. So he came to see her.
Yeah.
And he offered me a job in Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia.
In Saudi Arabia as head of treasury and investment banking.
Yeah.
And I actually turned him down. I said, I switched to Munich for a career. What would United Saudi offer me as a career? I would be head of treasury and investment banking, and that would be the end of my career. He said, yes, that is correct. he said, I will give you a 3-year contract, which is what he had also.
There's no way. Yeah. True.
And it could be the end of your career.
Right.
But then he asked me, he said, how old are you?
Yeah.
Actually, he knew my age, but he just wanted to bring home a point. And he said, at this age, you don't need a career. What you need is money.
How old were you, sir, at that time, if I may ask you?
This was in 1979. So 79, I was 54 years old.
54.
55
Okay.
years old.
You need you don't need a career, you need money. Golden words, yeah, basically.
Yeah.
This is something
And
which
he
is
gave
like,
me the
yeah, this
offer,
is, yeah.
And looking at the offer and a zero tax country, it was difficult to turn it down. So I decided to give up career for money. I gave up money for career. Now I decided to give up career for money.
Do you have any regrets to it, sir?
Yeah.
As on date?
But after I moved there, for me, it was also an addition to my career. It didn't offer me a future career, but I had missed out on the Middle East experience. And this one rectified that. I got into things like Islamic banking. I was also treasurer for the whole bank, not for just one country, but for the bank worldwide. Of course, it didn't have many branches, but then we were having global investments.
What bank was that, sir?
United Saudi Bank.
Right,
yeah,
Saudi.
it later on merged with Saudi American Bank after I left, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. It was then United Saudi Bank.
Right.
And we were now handling global investments, which I had not done. I was only handling emerging market investments before that.
Right.
So we could invest in the US market. We got into fund briefing and various other things. So even career-wise, it was a good step for me if we didn't offer a permanent career.
Right.
After 3 years, I was asked to continue for another 6 months. My boss, Karl Saboda, had left, but the new general manager wanted me to continue for another 6 months, which I did. And then the bank also merged, and I moved back to Prague, where I set up my financial services company.
So that's when your entrepreneurship came into play, right?
In fact,
So
I had already plans for that because I knew that, I would be leaving Saudi Arabia in 3 years, in approximately 3 years. It was about 3.5.
and why Prague?
Prague, because that was my longest stint in the more recent past, 5 years at Prague.
So that was your love
Munich
love
was one
towards
year.
or it was your second wife is Czech, right? No,
Yes,
you. So
yes. In
it was
fact,
it
I
was it a
met her.
relationship with her already which brought you there?
I didn't have a relationship with her then, but I
Okay,
knew her because she was part of Bayerische Bank,
okay,
and she was
got
my
it.
account manager in Prague, where I had my Czech crown account.
Right. So you have both you have relationships together. So you were working together basically at that
We
time.
were working together, but later on, I'd left Bayerische Bank, and after I got back to Prague, it was only then that we got into a relationship.
Right. Right. And ever since you started your own business after that, you started your own investment banking advisory company,
Advisory services, yes.
advisory services. So that you have been having global clients from all over the world for that with your fund.
Primarily in the Middle East and in Europe.
Yes,
I did a couple of projects in India too,
yeah.
but mainly also one in Singapore, but otherwise mainly in Europe, and the Middle East.
Right.
But that was not the only thing. I had also set up an offshore company in the British Virgin Islands and handled offshore investments for a few people. My investors were limited to 100 because of the type of company that I had set up. With this limitation, I did not have to do a prospectus and so on, and I couldn't advertise, but I could approach people and friends directly.
Absolutely. With your vast experience, I think
Right.
it shouldn't have been a big thing to get to a level of 100, but I mean with your vast experience of global banking.
Absolutely.
So this is something which is really applaudable and really something which is younger generations have to go ahead and look into and learn from. And I can still catch the golden words of that Saudi boss of the bank, which he gave you the advice that at 54 you don't need a career, you need money. So that's something to take home. It's a good advice, and that's something which is, I think, every young man has to keep in mind. And the people in my age, I would say, like when you hit 50, you've got to be ready for that it's not the time to build up your careers, it's a time to see where the money is coming out from you.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's a good advice, sir. In nutshell, what are your experiences as a life journey? What will be the 5 key points you would like to give to the younger generation as a successful banker, investment advisor, and the life you have lived till now?
Okay.
We have got 10 minutes to go.
Yeah, sure.
This.
No, sure. So I'll limit myself. My first advice
the real gems from your life, we would like that to go out.
Yeah, my first advice would be to keep up to date in your profession. Make sure that you're competent. Unless you're competent, you cannot achieve anything. That is the basic thing, and that means continuing to retrain yourself, continuing to be exposed to changes, and making sure that you are up to date in the markets that you're in. The best work, second advice would be that it would be best to work closely with people. People are your best resources. You have to motivate them and be more, and they will do the best for you. Again, be nice to people. Even when they do something wrong, there is a way of rectifying you can be firm and nice and correct them. My third advice is that accept differences. Accept the fact that you may not always be right, that someone may have a better idea, even if he's working for you. Again, my personal philosophy in this is that if someone working with me and I always agree, then one of us is not needed.
Correct.
Because there's nothing new we bring to the table.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So that is something where I've accepted ideas from others. They may have accepted my ideas, and we have moved forward and got the best results as a result. The success then automatically comes when you're working with people. The other opinion that I have is keep improving your employees. Retrain them. Make sure that they keep getting the right training for what they're doing. And sometimes you might find that they may not be suited for the actual job they're doing. I had one person in Prague who was not a good trader. He was not a good dealer. But I put him on, I changed the job content slightly, and I put him on to risk management of trading.
He got successful.
And he did very well in that job.
Got it, sir.
Yeah.
And what's the last advice, sir, for you would have, the fifth one?
The fifth one is a bias for action. Make sure that you act more than you talk.
You act more than you talk.
Yeah.
You act more than you talk. Golden words.
Absolutely.
Golden
Keep
words.
your meetings brief and to the point.
That's so golden words, sir. These are the points which I'll be putting them down in written format, your advices, so that the people who come and listen to this at some stage in younger generations will have these gems to learn from you, from our talk today. And thank you so much, sir, Mr. Vijay Khanna, sir. It has been so good to see you. First of all, healthy and safe there, living in Prague. And I hope that you are taking care of your dog well and going for the dog walks.
Absolutely.
And that's so good to see you. And you have a good day, sir. Thank you for coming down and sparing time for me.
Bye-bye.
You have a great day, sir. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Have a good day, sir. Bye-bye.